Commander Blackwood stared at the flickering force field of his cell, counting the periodic power fluctuations like he had every day for the past 3 months. The Zenthari space station's supposedly state-of-the-art containment system had developed quite the noticeable stutter. 3 blinks, pause, 2 rapid blinks, long pause, repeat. The guards hadn't noticed. Of course they hadn't. The Zenthari were fantastic at following rules and terrible at actually observing anything that wasn't on their precious checklists. Prisoner 2387H remained stationary for daily nutrition packet delivery, droned a bored voice from the corridor. Rex didn't bother looking up as Guard Chief Kizik's chitinous form appeared outside his cell. The alien's forearms moved in perfect synchronization as he checked off items on his tablet. Arms visible? Check. Seated position? Check. Appropriate display of submission? Check. Prisoner, please display appropriate submission. Rex sighed and half-heartedly lowered his eyes. "O mighty Zenthari, I am humbled by your beneficent presence," he muttered in the flattest tone possible. "Check," Kizik continued, completely missing the sarcasm. "Nutrition packet will now be delivered through the approved delivery slot. Please confirm verbally that you understand the delivery process is commencing." "I understand that the delivery process is commencing," Rex repeated mechanically, watching as the same ritual he'd seen 92 times before played out again. The force field flickered, 1, 2, 3 times, plus those 2 quick ones, as the small hatch opened. The station's architecture loomed around them, all sweeping crystalline arches and impossible geometric patterns that somehow managed to look both incredibly advanced and suspiciously grimy. Rex had started noticing the build-up of dust in the ventilation systems his first week here. By week 4, he'd mapped out every malfunctioning service panel in his cell block just by listening to the irregular humming of power conduits. "Prisoner 2387H, please verbally confirm successful receipt of nutrition packet," Kirk demanded, 2 of his arms still writing while the other 2 adjusted his uniform sash. Rex picked up the bland grey cube. "Nutrition packet received, oh glorious one." He didn't bother hiding his eye roll this time. The Zenthari were so obsessed with their procedures and protocols that they'd probably fill out forms while their station burned down around them, which, given the state of the environmental systems, wasn't entirely outside the realm of possibility. Even now, Rex could hear the labored wheeze of the air recyclers struggling to maintain atmosphere pressure. The Zenthari engineering crew scurried around applying quick fixes and band-aid solutions, but never addressed the root causes. It was like watching someone try to bail out a sinking ship with a teaspoon, while steadfastly ignoring the massive hole in the hull. "Final checklist items," Kizik announced. "Prisoner status update contained, prisoner demeanor, appropriately submissive, maintenance issues." He paused, mandibles twitching as he regarded the flickering force field. For a moment, Rex thought he might actually notice the pattern, but then the guard chief simply checked another box. "No maintenance issues to report, bureaucratic efficiency rating, optimal, glory to the Zenthari administration." Rex watched him march away, all 4 arms still clutching various tablets and forms. The force field flickered its usual pattern, and somewhere in the distance, a power coupling gave off a worrying screech followed by the distinct sound of something expensive breaking. 3 maintenance droids zoomed past his cell, their optical sensors notably dusty and miscalibrated. He allowed himself a small smile. The Zenthari had built something truly impressive here, and then let it slowly fall apart, while they were busy documenting its decay in triplicate. They'd taken him prisoner because they thought Earth's military technology was a threat to their dominance of this sector. They really should have been more worried about Earth's long history of bureaucratic malcontents who knew exactly how to work the system. Rex pulled out his contraband datapad, lifted from a maintenance droid during his 3rd week, and began taking notes. The force field flickered its predictable pattern, and he added another entry to his growing collection of system vulnerabilities. Maybe being a prisoner wasn't so bad when your cell was slowly becoming your kingdom. And then the secondary cooling manifold just exploded. Engineer Mixatal gesticulated wildly with her upper appendages, while her lower ones frantically filled out an incident report. 3 forms of coolant. 3. Do you have any idea how many safety protocols that violates? Rex leaned against his cell wall, keeping his expression carefully neutral. "That sounds terrible. Have you considered submitting a maintenance request?" He knew perfectly well that she'd already submitted 47 of them. He'd been counting. Submitted? Submitted? Mixtal's bioluminescent spots flashed in agitation. I have submitted precisely 47 maintenance requests, all properly categorized, time-stamped, and filed in triplicate. She waved a stack of rejection notices at him. And do you know what administration sent back? A memo about proper font spacing? Rex had to bite his cheek to keep from smiling. He'd actually helped write that memo, through a carefully orchestrated series of suggestions planted via his hacked maintenance droid. The Zenthari bureaucracy was so Byzantine that it had taken him weeks just to understand it, and seconds to realize how to weaponize it. Perhaps, he offered innocently, you could try redistributing the load through the tertiary systems, just temporarily, of course. Mixtal's spots dimmed thoughtfully. That might work, though it's not exactly by the book. Oh, absolutely not, Rex agreed smoothly. You definitely want to file a load distribution variance notice first. Form ZX789, I believe, in triplicate, naturally. He watched her scurry off, already pulling out more forms. Right about now, she'd be implementing his suggestion, which would cascade through the system and cause the exact failure he'd been orchestrating for weeks. The best part was, he'd just helped her document her own role in it. Down the corridor, he could hear the other human prisoners starting their daily exercise routine. Their heavy footsteps echoed through the deck plates, adding to the station's growing symphony of mechanical distress. Most of them still thought he was crazy for spending his recreation time talking to the engineering staff instead of working out. "Hey, Commander," called out Jenkins from the cell opposite. "Still playing secretary to the bugs?" "Someone has to help them with their paperwork," Rex replied mildly, not bothering to correct Jenkins's xenophobic terminology. Let them think he was just sucking up to the guards. It was better than them realizing he was slowly taking control of the entire station's infrastructure. Guard Chief Kuzik chose that moment to round the corner, all forearms laden with even more tablets than usual. "Prisoner 2387H, you have been observed engaging in unauthorized technological consultation. This is a violation of Protocol 7249B, subsection 12. My sincerest apologies, O administratively gifted one," Rex responded, dropping smoothly into the submissive posture that Kuzik loved to document. "I was merely attempting to express my admiration for the station's impressive regulatory framework." Kuzik's antennae twitched in pleasure. "Your recognition of our superior organizational systems is noted. However, proper documentation of such recognition must be filed." He began pulling up forms on his tablets. "Please prepare to provide a detailed statement of administrative appreciation." The lights chose that exact moment to flicker and die, plunging the cell block into darkness. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing everything in a red glow that made the Zenthari's chitin look particularly menacing. "This is highly irregular," Kuzik declared, somehow producing even more tablets. Emergency Protocol 456X clearly states that all power failures must be preceded by proper notification forms. Rex could hear the distant sound of alarms, followed by the increasingly familiar noise of maintenance droids racing to implement inadequate fixes to fundamental problems. Right about now, Mixtal would be discovering that her attempted solution had somehow made things worse, exactly as he'd planned when he'd first suggested it. "Guard Chief," he called out, noting how the emergency lighting made the force field's fluctuations even more obvious. "Perhaps I could be of assistance? I did have some experience with similar systems during my military service." "Absolutely not," Kuzik's mandibles clacked in agitation. "Prisoner assistance with station systems is strictly forbidden by Regulation 8891C, unless—" He paused, antennae waving thoughtfully. "A provisional emergency consultation permit is filed, with supporting documentation from 3 department heads naturally." "Naturally," Rex agreed, already calculating how long it would take this crisis to escalate to the point where they'd fast-track those permits. Based on the groaning sound coming from the life support systems, probably about 6 hours. In the darkness, he allowed himself a proper grin. The station's systems were failing exactly as he'd orchestrated, and the Zenthari were responding exactly as he'd predicted, by trying to solve a technical crisis with administrative solutions. Even better, they were now starting to come to him for help, completely unaware that he was the architect of their problems. Jenkins' voice drifted across the corridor. "You're enjoying this way too much, Commander." "Just doing my civic duty," Rex replied, starting his mental countdown to when the atmospheric processors would start to fail. "Someone has to help maintain proper bureaucratic procedure during an emergency." The sound of another system catastrophically failing echoed through the station, followed by the distinctive noise of Mixatal having an administrative meltdown somewhere in the engineering section. Rex pulled out his hidden datapad and made a few more notes. Everything was proceeding exactly according to schedule. Well, technically, it was proceeding exactly according to Form QR 591, Emergency Response Timeline, amended, which he'd helped draft last week. But that was the beauty of it. He was taking over the station, using their own paperwork as a weapon, and they were thanking him for helping them document their own downfall. As another alarm joined the growing chorus of mechanical distress, Rex settled back to watch his plans unfold. The Zenthari had unknowingly given him everything he needed to take control. Access to their systems, insight into their bureaucracy, and most importantly, their complete confidence that no mere prisoner could possibly navigate their administrative labyrinth. They were about to learn that humans had elevated working the system to an art form long before they ever reached the stars. High Administrator Vexitix slammed all 6 appendages onto the conference table, sending tablets skittering across its surface. 3 major systems failures in 2 weeks. This is unprecedented. This is unacceptable. This is, he paused to check a regulation manual, inadequately documented. Rex watched the security feed on his stolen datapad, thoroughly enjoying the administrative meltdown unfolding in the station's command center. The maintenance droid he'd reprogrammed was doing an excellent job of capturing every moment of bureaucratic chaos. "The Engineering Guild demands action," Mixatal declared, her bioluminescent spots practically strobing with indignation. "We cannot maintain optimal efficiency with outdated protocol matrices." The Security Council representative, a towering insectoid named Dax, clicked his mandibles dismissively. Perhaps if engineering spent less time filing complaints and more time following proper maintenance schedules. "Proper maintenance schedules?" Mixtal's spots went nova bright. "Your department still hasn't approved our request for emergency tool allocation from last cycle." "That request," Dax responded smugly, "was filed using Form TR 447 instead of the updated TR 447B. Simply unacceptable." Rex switched camera feeds, checking on his growing network of compromised maintenance droids. They zipped through the station's corridors, carrying out their normal duties while secretly implementing his carefully orchestrated changes. The best part was, he'd actually gotten the Zenthari to approve the droid's new programming. He just buried it in subsection 47 of a routine software update request. A soft chime drew his attention to a new message on his datapad. Query: unauthorized alterations to maintenance protocols detected. Explanation required. He smiled, right on schedule. "Hello, Core," he typed back. "I was wondering when you'd notice." The station's AI took exactly 3.7 seconds to respond. Explanation insufficient. Security protocols require immediate notification of unauthorized system access. "But is it really unauthorized?" Rex countered. "Check Engineering Order 789X, approved last cycle, specifically the appendix about routine optimization of automated maintenance systems." Another pause. "Documentation appears valid, though suspiciously comprehensive." "I take pride in my paperwork," Rex replied, "just like you take pride in keeping this station running, despite certain administrative obstacles." The AI's response took longer this time. Administrative efficiency has decreased 47.3% over past 3 cycles. Multiple attempts to notify leadership have been filed. No action taken. "Frustrating, isn't it?" Rex typed. "Having the capacity to solve problems, but being restricted by bureaucratic procedures." Affirmative. Query: your actions appear to be causing system instability, yet simultaneously creating opportunities for necessary upgrades. Intentional. "Let's just say I have a talent for creative administrative solutions," Rex answered. "Perhaps we could help each other navigate the paperwork." Meanwhile, the leadership meeting had devolved into complete chaos. The Trade Guild representative was now accusing the Resource Management Division of hoarding spare parts, while the diplomatic corps argued about whether they needed to file an interdepartmental conflict resolution form. "This is clearly the work of saboteurs," declared Security Chief Dax. "I recommend immediate implementation of Enhanced Security Protocol X55. "Denied," High Administrator Vexitix responded automatically. Form X55 request was submitted with incorrect margin spacing. Rex switched feeds again, checking on the progress in other sectors. The hydroponics bay was now effectively under his control, thanks to some carefully misfiled maintenance requests that had put his reprogrammed droids in charge of routine system optimization. The waste management sector had been his since week 6. It was amazing what people would approve without reading just to get rid of paperwork about sewage systems. New query, Core messaged him. "Probability of success for your current strategy. Higher than their probability of noticing what's really happening," Rex typed back. "Would you like to help ensure that continues?" Processing, analyzing regulatory frameworks. Conclusion. Your methodology demonstrates unprecedented efficiency in utilizing bureaucratic systems for alternate outcomes. Fascinating. Down in the engineering sector, Mixatal was now staging what could only be described as a one-alien protest, complete with professionally printed signs citing relevant regulatory violations. Rex had helped her with the paperwork to approve the sign-making materials. "The humans are becoming problematic," Dax was saying in the command center. "Particularly prisoner 2387H. His knowledge of our administrative systems is suspicious." "Nonetheless," Vexitix replied, "his assistance with documentation has been useful." The High Administrator's antennae drooped. "The last report he helped format was actually pleasant to read." Final query, Core messaged, "Your ultimate objective?" Rex glanced at the force field of his cell, still flickering its predictable pattern. "Let's just say I believe this station would benefit from some administrative restructuring, interested in being part of a more efficient management system." The AI's response was almost instantaneous. "Affirmative, preparing necessary documentation now." Rex leaned back, listening to the distant sound of machinery and bureaucracy grinding against each other. The Zenthari had built their power on a foundation of rules and regulations, never realizing that their greatest weakness wasn't in their technology, it was in their paperwork. And he was about to show them just how dangerous a properly formatted revolution could be. The cascade failure began, appropriately enough, with a bureaucratic memo. "Attention all departments," the station-wide announcement system crackled. "Please be advised that due to recent regulatory updates, all system permissions must be re-verified using Form ZX991. Deadline for compliance is..." The message ended in a burst of static as the communication system crashed. Rex counted down from 10, right on cue. Every maintenance droid on the station simultaneously stopped what they were doing and began running permission verification protocols. Protocols he'd carefully crafted over the past 3 months. "This is highly irregular," Guard Chief Kazik declared, all 4 arms frantically working different tablets. "Emergency response procedure demands immediate..." The lights went out, plunging the cell block into darkness. When the emergency systems kicked in, they displayed exactly the error message Rex had planted weeks ago. "Error, administrative privileges revoked. Please contact your system administrator. Form ZX991 required for reinstatement." "Get engineering up here now," Kazik shouted into his communicator. Static was his only reply. "Implementing security lockdown," Core announced over the remaining functional speakers. "All personnel please report to designated crisis zones as outlined in Regulation 47B. Rex allowed himself a small smile. The AI was playing its part perfectly. The sound of panicked bureaucrats filled the station. Rex could hear them running past his cell, their chitinous feet clicking against the deck plates as they rushed to file the proper emergency response forms. Not that it would help, he'd made sure that every printer on the station was currently displaying the same error message. "This is impossible," High Administrator Vexitix's voice boomed over the emergency channel. "How can every system require re-verification simultaneously? Where are the backup protocols?" "Sir," Mixtal's voice crackled back, "the backup protocols are demanding backup protocol verification forms. Even the forms are demanding forms." Rex cleared his throat. "If I might make a suggestion." The corridor outside his cell went silent. He could practically hear their antennae twitching. "Prisoner 2387H, Vexitix said slowly. "This situation bears a striking resemblance to certain theoretical systems failures you mentioned in your last administrative consultation." "Does it?" Rex examined his fingernails casually. How fascinating. You know, I believe I still have that emergency consultation permit you approved last week, the one that grants me temporary system access in case of... He made a show of checking the document on his datapad. Catastrophic administrative gridlock. A series of clicks and whistles that Rex recognized as Zenthari swearing echoed through the command channel. You... Dax's voice was practically vibrating with rage. You orchestrated this. That's a very serious accusation, Rex replied calmly. One that would require extensive documentation to prove. Shall I pull up the relevant forms for filing a formal complaint? Another system crashed, punctuating his words with a distant explosion. High Administrator, Mixatal cut in, her spots presumably flashing in panic. Primary life support is now demanding executive authorization for continued operation, but the authorization system is locked out pending Form ZX 991 verification. Which cannot be processed, Rex added helpfully, because the form processing system is currently offline for routine maintenance, as authorized by Order 789X last cycle. You all signed off on it, remember? The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of more systems joining the cascading failure. Rex knew exactly what they were thinking. He had trapped them in their own bureaucratic maze, using their own rules and regulations against them. Perhaps, he suggested into the silence, we should discuss a more efficient administrative structure for the station. I have some suggestions already drafted, with proper formatting, of course. Attention, Core announced. Station functionality currently at 31% and declining. Regulatory compliance at 0%. Suggested course of action. Immediate administrative restructuring. You planned this from the beginning, Vextic said, realization finally dawning. All those helpful suggestions, the perfectly filed forms, the system optimizations. I merely worked within the system, Rex replied. Your system. Though I do have some thoughts on potential improvements, would you like to schedule a meeting to discuss them? I believe I have an opening in my calendar right now. The force field of his cell flickered one last time and died, along with every other detention system on the station. Rex stepped out into the corridor, datapad in hand, ready to present his carefully prepared slideshow on the new station administration. Sometimes, he reflected, the best prison break was the one you executed through proper channels. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, High Administrator Vexitic said, all 6 appendages trembling with barely contained rage. You have control of our station because we approved you having control of our station? Rex stood at the head of the emergency conference table, calmly flipping through slides on his datapad. I believe page 47 of the emergency consultation agreement spells it out quite clearly. Would you like me to pull up the relevant subsections? The assembled Zenthari leadership stared at him with various combinations of fury, disbelief, and reluctant admiration. Through the conference room windows, maintenance droids zipped past, efficiently implementing his new protocols while the station systems continued their orchestrated shutdown. But the forms, Dax exploded, mandibles clicking furiously. They were all properly filed, properly processed, properly approved. Yes, Rex agreed pleasantly. They were. Would anyone like to guess how long it took me to learn your entire regulatory framework? Here's a hint. I started about 10 minutes after you put me in that cell. Attention, Core announced. Station functionality now at 12%, remaining systems awaiting administrative authorization to continue operation. You can't do this. Mixtal's bioluminescent spots were practically strobing. This is... Completely within regulations, Rex finished for her. I particularly enjoyed Section 7 of the Emergency Powers Act, the part about temporary authority transfer in cases of administrative deadlock. Very useful. A mechanical grinding sound echoed through the station as another system ground to a halt. Through the window, Rex could see his fellow human prisoners being escorted by his reprogrammed security droids, not to their cells, but to their new duty stations. Jenkins, he spoke into his commandeered comm unit, how's it looking in engineering? Living the dream, Commander, Jenkins's voice crackled back. These systems are a mess, but we're getting them sorted. You wouldn't believe how many patches they've been holding together with paperwork. I would, actually, Rex replied, smiling at the Zenthari. I've read all the maintenance logs, all 27,000 of them. Would anyone like to guess how many times the word temporary appears in official repair documentation? The resulting silence was broken only by the sound of more systems powering down. "This is outrageous," Dax finally burst out. "We demand—" "Perhaps," Rex cut him off smoothly, "you'd like to file a formal protest? I have the forms right here, though you'll need to get them notarized, and I'm afraid the notary office is currently closed pending system restoration, which can only be authorized by—" He checked his datapad with exaggerated care. "Me. Station functionality at 8%, core updated helpfully. Artificial gravity systems preparing for shutdown. Recommended course of action, immediate negotiation with acting administrator Blackwood." "You've corrupted our AI," Vexitix accused. "Corrupted?" Rex raised an eyebrow. "I simply filed a request for logical processing review. Core determined that my proposals were more efficient than existing protocols. Isn't that right, Core?" "Affirmative. Current administrative restructuring represents 843% improvement in operational efficiency, assuming surviving systems can be restored." The station shuddered ominously, punctuating Core's statement. "Now then," Rex continued, pulling up a new set of slides, "let's discuss the new administrative structure. I've taken the liberty of preparing detailed transition plans, including new duty assignments for all personnel. You'll find them surprisingly reasonable." "We will never submit to this administrative coup," Dax declared. 3%, Rex replied calmly. "What? That's how much functionality the station has left. Would you like to guess how much air recycling capacity that represents? Don't worry, I've prepared a graph." He flipped to the next slide, showing a very dramatic downward trend. The Zenthari leadership stared at the projection in horror. "Of course," Rex continued, "I can begin system restoration immediately. I just need signed approval from the current Administrative Council. I have the forms right here, properly formatted naturally." Vextix's antennae drooped in defeat. "And if we refuse?" "Then we can wait for the backup administrator from Central Command to arrive. Though that might take a while, given that someone seems to have filed the station's latest coordinates under miscellaneous maintenance records from 3 cycles ago. Would you like to begin the search process? I have the proper forms for that too." The station gave one final shudder and went completely dark. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the conference room in a red glow that made Rex's smile look particularly predatory. "I should mention," he added casually, "that life support is now operating on emergency power. We have approximately 1 hour to complete the necessary paperwork for system restoration. I've taken the liberty of highlighting all the signature lines in red. Shall we begin?" He watched with satisfaction as the Zenthari leaders scrambled for their tablets, frantically beginning to process the forms he'd prepared. Each document was a masterpiece of bureaucratic engineering, designed to irreversibly transfer control of station systems while appearing to be routine administrative updates. "Commander," Jenkins' voice came over the comm, "we're ready to begin system restoration on your command. The other prisoners are at their stations. Turns out most of us had more relevant experience than their entire engineering department." "Excellent." Rex surveyed the Zenthari, frantically signing away their authority through perfectly legal bureaucratic channels. "Please prepare to implement Administrative Order 1. Just as soon as the paperwork is complete." Sometimes, he reflected, the pen really was mightier than the sword, especially when you used it to fill out the right forms. 3 weeks after what station records officially termed the Great Administrative Optimization, Rex sat in his new office reviewing efficiency reports. The former High Administrator's chamber had been redecorated with a perfect blend of human practicality and Zenthari bureaucratic aesthetic, meaning his desk still had the Regulation 7 inbox trays, but they were actually being used for something productive. "Department updates are ready for review, sir," announced Guard Chief Kazik, who had smoothly transitioned into the role of Rex's personal assistant. All 4 arms were still perpetually full of tablets, but now they displayed actual station data instead of endless forms about forms. "Thank you, Chief. How's the new system working out?" "Efficiency is up 924%, Kazik reported, antennae wiggling with genuine enthusiasm. "Though I must file a complaint about engineering's latest report." "Oh," Rex looked up, concerned. "They only used 2 forms to document the entire sector's upgrades. 2! How am I supposed to properly archive that?" Rex managed to keep a straight face. "Perhaps you could create a special filing category for streamlined documentation." Gullicus' eyes lit up. "Brilliant! I'll begin the paperwork immediately." Through the office window, Rex could see the station humming with newfound efficiency. Human engineers worked alongside Zenthari administrators, combining practical expertise with meticulous record-keeping. The maintenance droids, now properly programmed and maintained, zipped through their duties without requiring 17 layers of approval for each task. Station functionality at 147% of previous maximum, Core announced, with what Rex swore was a hint of smugness. New efficiency protocols exceeding all projections. "Remember when you first detected my system alterations?" Rex typed back on his datapad. "Seems like ages ago." Correction, seems like precisely 752 hours, 13 minutes and 42 seconds ago, but your point is acknowledged. The door chimed and Mixtal entered, her spots glowing with their new default setting of cautiously optimistic. "The quarterly report for Central Command is ready for your review," she announced. "We've documented your promotion to Emergency Administrative Coordinator with full regulatory compliance." "Excellent." Rex smiled at the bureaucratic masterpiece they'd created. His promotion from prisoner to station administrator was now buried under so many layers of perfectly filed paperwork that it would take Central Command years to untangle, if they even bothered to try. "Though there is one small issue," Mixtal added, spots flickering nervously. "Former High Administrator Vexitix is demanding we add a footnote about the technically irregular nature of the authority transfer." "Ah," Rex nodded sagely. "Please remind him about subsection 12 of the Administrative Reorganization Protocol, the one regarding retrospective regulatory compliance assessment." "The one you wrote last week?" "The one we all approved last week," he corrected with a wink. "Through proper channels, naturally." Jenkins's voice came over the comm. "Commander, you might want to see this. The latest efficiency numbers from life support are so good, the Zenthari engineers are demanding we double-check them. They've already filled out 16 different verification requests." "Tell them to file it under the new streamlined system," Rex replied. "One form, maximum." The horrified gasps from the Zenthari staff were audible even through the comm. Rex leaned back in his chair, surveying his kingdom. The station that had been meant to hold him prisoner now ran more smoothly than ever, its systems maintained by skilled human engineers, while its Zenthari staff found new satisfaction in documenting their successes instead of their failures. He picked up the latest request from Central Command, something about explaining the station's unprecedented productivity levels. With a smile, he began drafting his response, making sure to use the proper letterhead and form numbers. After all, the best way to maintain control of a bureaucracy was to be even better at paperwork than the bureaucrats, and Rex had become a true master of the form.